So, hello and welcome back to another episode of What Does It Mean to Be Human, a podcast on life, meaning, and everything. And as usual, I'm Ron Saylor, creative warrior, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Ben Gare, master and lover of plants.
Absolutely.
So, how you doing today, mate?
Hey, mate, how you doing? Yeah, good. We're just out of sort of Easter weekend, going into another long weekend this weekend. So yeah, feel like the energy's been pretty intense around in the last week, but I have not a lot to share on it at the moment. But let's just see what unfolds here.
Yep, sounds good, mate. Did you want to kind of elaborate on what you mean by the intensity around that weekend, the energy, anything in particular?
Just, I'm not very into astrology, but I kind of sometimes feel it affecting me in the background. And then when someone elaborates on the actual what is happening in constellations and stuff, it kind of makes sense. And it's just like, okay. So sometimes I'm not sure whether it's my process, whether it's a client I'm dealing with process, or the universe's process for me or it or us. Trying to determine what's mine, what's others, what's external that I have just no influence on at all. So just, I know there was kind of a big alignment conjunction for Easter, which is always kind of a astrologically based date and between full moons and whatever. So I just think there's been some sort of big energies around in the last week, which I'm quite sensitive to. I had a plant ceremony with a client on the weekend as well, so it was just quite palpable, the kind of people moving through stuff. I kind of start to get when it's a collective process and not just an individual one. When I'm in that kind of place where I can feel a lot more around me and what's going on. So yeah, in a weird esoteric way, that's sort of my story for the weekend. And yourself?
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm really interested in that process that you're kind of talking about, because we've always, we're all energetic beings at the end of the day, right? We just naturally have energy that connects, and a good example is, the classic example is you always walk in a room and you can either sense the tension in the room. People describe that, or you can walk in the room and sense that the room's happy. People are having a good time. So, whether, it's not something you can see, but something you can feel. So naturally, where some of us feel more than others, depends on our level of sensitivity. But I like what you shared about, sometimes, is it me? Is it the other person? Is it maybe what's happening outside of us collectively, whether it's through astrology, through the consciousness, through the energy, through the universe? There's always kind of that flow, like that ebb and flow of energy moving, right? And we either get caught up into it, or we kind of move through it, or it doesn't affect us or it affects us. And when we, as practitioners, right, we're always working with people, so there's always an energy transfer going on. And some people have intense energy, if we're just going to be real and honest about it, and some people have a lighter energy. And I find, for example, if I'm working with someone who has intensity, for me, it's like, how do I keep myself protected so I don't take on, whatever's going on for them? And so I don't lose my energy, right? So keeping myself full without giving it away. And other times I may feel that way, but I still get affected, because it may not necessarily be the client. It may be like what you were sharing about the energy through the universe, or the energy through the full moon cycles, and all these kind of things. So, it's nice to have that awareness. And for a lot of us, I'm not going to say a lot of us, some of us, who knows how many of us, people out there will not even be aware of this kind of thing. And they're like, they kind of make it all about them. They kind of like get caught up in, it's me, I'm like this, or I'm feeling this, I don't know why I'm feeling this. So This is a good example, right? If you ever catch yourself saying, I don't know why I feel like this, Well, it may not even be you to begin with, right? It may be something outside of you, maybe a different energy that's affecting you, and you're just not really
Yeah.
aware of your level of sensitivity.
Yeah, it's basically why we start to cultivate stillness. I think it's so you can get better discernment of where you're needing to put your energy or what work you need to do on yourself, and then what starting to put up sort of boundaries with the outside bleeding in, or with the client, or with stellar energies, or all that kind of stuff. It's the more you know yourself, the more you are centered in you, the more you're able to more quickly discern these little bits, and there's no perfection. Like, as I say, I don't know it until I kind of happen to read a Facebook post or someone says the energy is like this, and it's like, that's why. It's I'm quite kinesthetic in that way of I do feel a lot, hence why I kind of can't do cities and a lot of stuff like that, because because I am quite empathetic, and my energy is quite out there and sensitive to reading stuff. So that's why I live in a quite quiet place, and the energy is a lot more down tempo for the most part. So I can just function at normal in reality. So that's good. It's kind of how I am. So yeah.
Cool, man. So, we're kind of in a situation today where, like, Ben and I, we kind of always have a chat before we jump on these podcasts, just to share where we're at, see what's been happening, and check in as to how the, how it's going to unfold in the session. And me personally, it's like, this morning in my meditation, it was quite clear. There wasn't like much that I had to share. I felt like the energy was fairly balanced. I felt like, I've been in a reasonably balanced state. And not having too many experiences. But I did have one experience this morning, right, with a particular client who had to cancel his session because he thought that he locked his keys in his house. And it turned out that he had put his keys in a different pocket of his bag and not checked. He'd checked every other pocket except that. And I've been guilty of doing that myself. And it kind of got me thinking and wondering, okay, well, where does this come from? Like, why does this happen? Why do we sometimes find ourselves in this erratic, anxious state where we're not present of what's going on? And when he started sharing, it was kind of clear as to why he had done this, right? It was because he shared to me, he's got multiple jobs that he's doing at the moment. He's always tired and doesn't feel like he's rested. And he feels like his mind's constantly just rolling, like it's like that hamster on the wheel. So he's not quite sure where he is most of the time at the moment, right? It's not always like that. But I've noticed over the last 3 weeks, there's always been some drama on a Friday morning. Either the train hasn't arrived, or he's missed his bus, or there's something. And there's always something going on. So I thought, okay, this could be some food for thought. So Ben, based on that, where would you go with that? Like, for example, us forgetting things, or us moving erratically, or people like misplacing their possessions, or thinking they've misplaced their possessions, or missing trains, or getting places late, or like in that high stress mode.
So to me, there's sort of two major things playing out there in that. One is, how present are we to life? Like, how present are we to the things that we're doing on an ongoing basis? Like, are we really here, or are we half split in thoughts of future or past or present, whatever things are going on in your current reality, that they make us be checked out, because it's either you're taking on too much and you can't deal with it, it's the only way to cope, or you were never quite there in the first place due to a life of trauma, or a life of whatever story is getting hooked onto the current experience you're having, because often we're replaying and reliving sort of energies we knew growing up type thing, that kind of chaotic kind of thing. So we kind of tend to recreate it because it's the model that we've been given, or we know best, or as how we've run our life. And the other one, like, to probably big time watch, I'd say, would be addiction to drama. And addiction is one of those fantastic things that often we attribute to substances, which is just not necessarily an accurate depiction of what addiction really is. It can be to a behavior, it can be to an action, and a substance. It's like, I remember we used to have a client when I was working in a restaurant. He used to come at the exact same minute of every Wednesday, and always ordered the exact same meal, and it was just had to be that kind of, maybe some kind of autistic spectrum or something, like he had sort of ADHD type thing, like has to be obsessed. I'm sure he had a restaurant for every night of the week type thing. I remember one week we just were out of the fish that he always got, and he kind of lost his shit. And it was just like, it was, to me, the biggest kind of obvious one of how, if we wire our brain that way to constantly need something at a certain time or spot or place, or has to be exactly that kind of way, the sort of the anxiety creeps in, or you feel out of control of your environment, or whatever it is the process is going on. So that was a great one for addiction. And addicted to drama is one a lot of us have, that is really kind of definitely esoteric to talk about and to think about, because it's not an obvious one. It's like, well, obviously in your head you're like, I don't want to be addicted to drama, but it's like the amount of people that can't just sit and be is the majority of people, because it's like they have to fill it up with something, whether it's excessive talking or drinking, or the music or noise or distraction, TV, whatever that is, and there's no judgment on these things as such. It's just that, how much are they in balance with each other? How much have you cultivated the stillness and the quiet, compared to being able to enjoy those things in their own moment? So sometimes we unconsciously set up the drama as a way just to, again, probably programmed from maybe a chaotic childhood or something like that. But whatever it is, it's when it's the absence of, how you feel in the absence of something is how much you are addicted to it. So it's like, if you actually have a drama-free while, it's like, oh, I'm gonna lose my keys, or like overspend on my bank this week and then they got no money for next week, or stupid little things that we unconsciously do to kind of throw a spanner in our own works, because it's like, oh, this is too comfortable. I need, like, because you're kind of fueled by adrenaline, or fight and flight syndrome, or whatever is in the background of that action, and whatever's going on. So that they're more sort of my main 2 points with that kind of thing.
Yeah, mate, look, I totally agree. And one thing that kept coming up for me was how we create these things. Is sometimes it's kind of like, it's almost like a safety comfort zone, right? Because we're familiar with this kind of territory, right? It's almost like this is something we can fall back on, because we know how to deal with it, because it's something that we do regularly. So it's if it didn't happen, all of a sudden we're kind of in a situation where, like, well, this is something new. What do I do with this new stuff? What do I do with what do I do in this creative space?
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, what do we do when we have an opportunity to create? Well, maybe we'll look at sabotaging it somehow, because naturally, like what Ben was sharing, right, whether it's through a trauma or a wound or a mindset or a belief, behavior, whatever it can be, it's a particular path that we know to take because it's a safe path to keep us safe. Because the ego knows only one thing: keep me safe, keep me orientated, keep me on my path of what I know. If I deviate off that path, what the fuck's going to happen? So bring me back. So for some people, it's creating drama, right? So, and for others, it's working hard, right? For others, it's completely checking out. So we all have different mechanisms, kind of like, we can call them compensating strategies, right? How we kind of like strategize our lives or situations in order to navigate. How do we orientate? How do we kind of like maneuver the waters? Our ships in the waters, the ego, it's maneuvering. It's like avoiding all these pitfalls by creating more pitfalls in order to keep us safe from other pitfalls, if that kind of makes sense what I'm saying. So yeah, pretty good points on that. I think I agree. And, I think, with addiction, you were right. We kind of have this thought, and we've been kind of educated to believe that an addiction is based around some kind of stimulant or some, whether it's drug or alcohol. But you can be addicted to reading books. You can be addicted to being an intellectual. You can be addicted to like swimming, exercising.
Yep.
To the point where, you count every calorie you consume.
Yeah.
Okay, so addictions run on so many different levels. You can be addicted to, having everything clean. It's almost like an addiction is almost like a condition. In order for it to be, there has to be a condition around in order for you to function around that. And those addictions almost keep us, like I was saying, they're keeping us safe. It's almost, if that bubble, it's almost like a bubble around us. And if someone was to pop that bubble, you're probably in a world of where the fuck am I? So, and again, there's no judgment. I mean, I have my addictions to food, right? That's one of my pitfalls. I'll fall off the wagon and, I'll eat chocolate for a whole week, sometimes 2 weeks, cake, ice cream. That's just my thing. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take drugs. All that stuff's over. But now, food is my thing. That's kind of about my only pitfall, if I call it a pitfall. But I realize when I'm in my stuff, that's where I'm going to, because it's an old addiction that likes to resurface. Because every time I'm looking to create something that I want in my life, naturally my old belief systems and my patterns want to come up, and they want to challenge this new creation because it's like something new for the ego. And the ego's like, Ron, what the fuck are you doing, mate? This is not what we agreed upon, right? We have a set agreement of the way we're going to live our life. And in my heart, I'm like, no, mate, I want to create this. So naturally, all this stuff will come up and try to challenge it. And that's where we can either choose, where am I going to go, this way or that way? What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, look, absolutely, definitely. And it was kind of even coming, if you want to go from the sort of even more scientific model of neuroscience and how what wires together fires together, what fires together wires together. How our neural patterns, they create a groove, and it's like the typical kind of thing of like 21 days to start a new habit or whatever it is. It's breaking one's definitely a bit more than 21 days, but it's like if you consistently do an action every day for 21 days, you start to rewire the neural pathways to think this is normal. So this is beyond even like your conscious choice to kind of go, oh, well, I'm just not going to do that now. whatever the substance being an action as well it's because your brain is actually starting to hardwire a certain way. And if you think about, well, how long have you been doing this for, whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, of your life, if you kind of hardwire the brain to thinking that that's normal, it's a whole process trying to unravel that and see clear perspective of what's actually really going on. So we kind of constantly create this state where it's just like, oh, well, I just won't go there. So
yeah, I think what you're talking about is I mean, don't quote me on it, but neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Where we look at, yeah, like what you're saying, how has the brain created a stimulus, a particular pattern that it recognizes, right? And we kind of follow that pattern. And, you know, for me, the 21 days, 30 days, you can break a habit. I don't know if I believe that personally. I think it's a great guideline if you're doing it with awareness, because for a lot of people, they'll just use their will to push and force and read something. I'm going to change my habit. I'm going to change my habit. I think as long as you're acknowledging why you're looking to change that habit, right? So, for example, let's say, for example, I want to exercise 3 to 4 times a week. Okay, as an example, we're going to look at why we don't exercise 3 to 4 times a week. Is it because I'm lazy? Is it because I don't have the will? Is it because I just don't like to exercise? But I want to change that. So bring in, to me, the thing is acknowledging why you don't want to and having that in your awareness neutralizes the effect it has on your ego and in your subconscious. But if you ignore that and just say, I'm going to change my habit, I'm going to start exercising, then you're still negating why you're trying to change that habit. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why I said ultimately breaking habits, I don't think is 21 days. It's just consistently doing something every day. It starts to begin to build a new one. Again, I think unraveling it is a whole different story, which I don't think the 21 days is great for, great model for. But in terms of, and it probably lends itself definitely to more like negative acts, because we tend to be kind of self-saboteur. Like it's like, well, if I'm going to drink coffee every day for 21 days, it's going to start to go, I now need a coffee after it. Do you know what I mean? Like we just do these bad things that we kind of all love, and it seems to hardwire a lot quicker that way. That it's just like, yeah, okay, well that's now the norm. But yeah, when it comes to things that are better for us, like exercising, yeah, there's a whole belief system that needs to unravel there. Which is a whole nother story. So yeah, I totally agree.
And I think what I find is a common theme in these podcasts is, you know, we kind of talk about different things, but there's always a common thread, right? And that's just awareness, and that's developing awareness. And, you know, we talk about, you know, we do therapy, we've done different kinds of modalities, you know, we've done personal development, we've done a lot of things personally, Ben and I. Whether it's been through plant medicine, whether it's been through body work, through psychotherapy, through breath work, tantra, like Ben's done all this sort of stuff. It gives us a greater awareness of our triggers, right? And that's what we're kind of talking about. We're kind of talking about how do we start to become aware of these little things? Like, how do we start to become aware of things that we take for granted as every day? Or that's just me. That's just what I do. Or this is a reoccurring. Why does this reoccur? You know, we become aware of these small things, and the more awareness we can bring into the light, the more we can start to neutralize why these things happen. So when we're looking to change habits or change our thought process, we want to understand is, why do we have that thought process? And it's okay, we have it. Who cares? We're not going to beat ourselves up over it. We just have it. That's just the way it is. But the question is, what am I going to do now? And that's what it comes down to, is what am I going to do now? Now that I have this awareness, now that I'm learning this stuff, how do I apply it? And application happens in small steps. If we try too much too soon, it's just going to backfire. That's my experience. Because I'm trying to force something.
Totally.
If I apply it in small steps and I'm still conscious and aware of what's happening, then I'm able to neutralize it in smaller increments. Then it's just going to get to a point where my subconscious realizes that this is not how it needs to be. I can change that. And that takes time. And that's why it's great to have all this awareness. But awareness takes will, and it takes focus, and it takes discipline. And it takes a sense of creativity to do that, because it's just easy to do it. And like diets that are fads, you do it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you lose your weight. 4 weeks later, you put the weight back on. Because it's just If you're not focused with some kind of will, well, it's just bullshit, right? So you really need to have some focus and awareness in what you're doing, but don't beat yourself up. That's the point. We kind of talk about have some awareness. Don't beat yourself up, because you know we're all on this roller coaster, and it's going to take us to different places. And we just sometimes we have highs, sometimes we have lows, sometimes we just go like this. And it's a matter of finding that balance. It's a matter about that pendulum swinging back and forth, and just finding your feet and finding your dance and your rhythm and your power and your breath and your movement, right? And finding how you navigate, understanding what are the things that push you and what are the things you need to look at, what are things you need to develop. That's essentially like, you know, what we're trying to offer.
Yeah, it's very much the one I often say is like, life begins outside your comfort zone. You know, it's always outside your common experience, out of the things that you habitually do all the time, lies a stretch, you know, and it's great to start to become comfortable in those spaces so that you can incrementally integrate them as part of your life, so that if they happen randomly in life, you're more able to cope better if those things come up. But there is, and like you've probably experienced, and definitely I've experienced more than a few times, is it can re-traumatize you if you go too fast into kind of like, yeah, fuck, I'm just going to go do something completely outside of my norm and go too far the other way. So yeah, it was quite a pattern of mine for a while, probably connected to this needing drama, or life has to be hard, or whatever story gets like instilled in you about what reality is meant to look like. It was, I always had to have extremes, and it's just like that's no longer the pattern that I want to give any energy to anymore, because it's like, okay, I'm getting older, I don't need the drama of it anymore. And it's like, it's okay to just go at my own pace and not compare myself to others, and just start to stretch outside my comfort zone. It's like, because the stuff that happens, yeah, is definitely interesting. How you doing there?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. It's like I kind of said at the start. Today is kind of like I feel clear and blank. There's not kind of much that's kind of like on the radar for what's happening. So you know, we're kind of just like, as always, we're kind of just going with the flow and seeing what comes up. I'm pretty
Absolutely. Yeah, cool. So we might even just leave that there. They're definitely having a little bit of jitters in the recording here, the internet. I'm not sure what's going on there, but yeah, we might give that a call for the day. And always a pleasure having a chat and talking about what's happening in our world, and yeah, hopefully getting a bit clarity on what it means to be human. You know, that the elusive, ever-changing perspective that keeps us seeking for more depth of what it does mean to be human, and how to navigate that in an easier, more comfortable way. You know, and hopefully some of the information here gives people awareness on what to start to begin to look at and be aware of, and how to start navigating in an easier fashion.
Totally, man. And if I leave you all with one thing, it's this. Anytime you find yourself confused, or asking yourself, or checking, or having a thought around something, just pause for a second and just connect to your heart and just ask yourself, what is it that I want? And just see the first thing that comes up, and don't even question, don't think, just see what comes up and leave it at that, right? Don't go any further. If you want to explore it further, allow yourself to. The sooner we can bring our minds down into our hearts and connect, the more we start to feel like who we really are. And we start to see our power, the power that we have as warriors, as creative warriors. Anything we want to achieve, anything we want to create in our lives is there for us for the taking. It really is. Whether you want to believe it, you don't believe it, doesn't matter. But it's there. We have the power to create anything and everything that we want. And it all starts with a thought, a feeling, and an action. So go and live your best lives. Thanks for joining today. We'll see you next time on another episode of What Does It Mean to Be Human? Two blokes just having a chat.
Sounds good, mate. And good luck out there and enjoy the ride.
See you guys.